Okay, so let's get started. So this is the second episode of What the Future, the College of Liberal Arts Career Coaching webinar series. Every Wednesday in April, we're trying to pilot this to see if y'all would like this content. Today's topic is about building your socially distanced career community, and we'll be talking about how storytelling and all these other things infuse in it. I didn't mention this earlier with you, Paulden or Carolina, but I actually do improv comedy and storytelling when I'm not a career coach that's socially distanced. So you might find that there's a lot of positivity and just genuine fun that's embedded in my webinars if it's relevant for you. But yeah, so we're going to get cruising and get started on there. Okay. So this is just again, the CSU principles of community. So I just wanted to mention this because we are in a digital space and sometimes students feel removed from that. Also because if you see any trolls, like I will be kicking them out. But I just wanted you to be aware that the CSU Career Center really embodies these values as an office, and our mission and vision aligns with equity and access. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to do my best to help figure out, everyone's career journey is really personal and unique, and that also relates to your identities. Like we can't separate who we are from a job search or a graduate school search, and so in our content, we try to make sure that we're honoring those identities as much as possible. But if I miss something, please call me into it, or if you have specific questions about your experience, I'd love to honor that and see if we can find specific resources for you. Okay, so this is kind of what we're going to be doing next. I think this will be relevant for both of you just to get some clarity on these questions. And again, we talked a little bit about it before, but I'm going to cruise on through. So transitions and community. So I would love for you all to take 2 minutes on your own to sit with these questions and answer them. You can even jot it down if that's helpful for you. No one's grading you, so there's no pressure if you don't want to. Awesome. So now that you've had some time to reflect on these questions, let's talk about why we're talking about it. Networking or building a career community, like knowing who's in your corner, is really important. But if you don't have a lot of people in your corner, right? If you're like, ooh, I have my parents maybe, that's great, but maybe my parents aren't in the field that I want to go into, or maybe my parents aren't really supportive in my life, right? There's all sorts of different relationships we have. But no matter what, we have to get really clear on our story. Like, what's our next step? What are things that we're looking for or excited about? And what do we want people to know us for, right? Like, I always think about, again, based on my career over time, who I've become as a person evolves, right? Like who we are changes over time, but I'm still known for 3 pretty core things. And you might have picked up on them throughout this presentation so far, but I know that folks know me as someone who is really energetic, someone who cares a lot about students, but I'm pretty authentic in the advice or the coaching. So again, authentic, energetic, and I'm really down with social justice. Like those are 3 things that I intentionally got experiences in and explored and found that was my jam. But that didn't just happen overnight, right? I had to set myself up to determine what my interests were, find those people who are in those industries or had those opportunities, advocate to get those experiences, and then develop it over time. So when we think about why it's hard to talk about ourselves, finding an authentic way to tell your story so that you can get to that next step that makes the most sense to you, so you're not just settling for that job that pays your bills like you were talking about earlier. I think that's really important, but it isn't easy. So there's some reflection activities that, again, I think next week in the storytelling session will be really powerful, but starting with what is my next step? What am I looking for? And who's in my corner and how could they help? And if I don't have those people in my corner, how could they help me, right? Like who do I need to seek out and how do I do that? And that's what this workshop's about. Okay, so some folks said some specific questions, which was great, of like determine a specific goal or a specific industry they want to get into, or figure out what the heck they're good at, to not settle for something that's beneath them, and that's okay. So I just want to do a quick mention of, yes, transitions are real, and also we're going through a particularly unique one. So if you think about networking right now, like who's in your corner, or maybe you want to explore careers like both of you were sharing, or you want to get connections for the industry you're interested in, it might be good to take into note like what our current context is economically and how that might impact how you approach that career exploration when it relates to networking. So again, just briefly, some employer perspectives so that you're aware. We have an employer advisory board actually through the Career Center at CSU, and they specifically mentioned some tips that they wanted students to be aware of, and the biggest one was building and maintaining relationships. Because relationships extend beyond our current experience and far beyond what current job openings are here right now. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. They're just as confused or stunned, and reaching out to connect with them is a really great way to learn more about opportunities and so that they think of you, right? Like, it's not just, I see this opportunity, I'm applying for it. Oh, boo, like they thought of me. Like like that is branding. That is, and you are known as the person who does what, right? Like skills or what talents you bring. Like what's your story, right? And again, next week we're going to dive into the storytelling elements, but this week we're going to focus on more of the, like, what building awareness of what networking is, and then diving into how the heck do I network? Okay. So with that in mind, oh, that was so fancy. Okay, so if you're wondering, okay, yes, networking, ew. Do either of you get a cold trickle of sweat down your back when you hear the word networking? Okay, yeah, I get chills down my back, and I'm a career coach. So when I don't like a term, I put in one that I prefer instead. And so that's why I call networking actually career community building, because that's what it is, right? It's a community of people who serve different roles in your life throughout different points in your over your lifelong experience, and that's a beautiful thing. But it's really, really important because finding a job is a rigged game. Do either of you feel frustrated because you have to have experience in order to get experience? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. A lot of my students do. And we feel like we don't have enough, or we were talking about what skills do I even have if I was new in this major, etc. So there's a lot of reasons why the game is rigged. And it's especially rigged for folks with identities that aren't the majority, right? Like there are folks who have specific needs or barriers that others don't face because of who they are. And so that's why we talk a lot about social capital, like who you know and who knows you. Because I know Bill Gates, but Bill Gates does not know me. Bill Gates cannot help me with my job search, right? But maybe Bill Gates can help me explore, or like maybe, the person 10 layers down from Bill Gates can be a great connection, right? So these are some statistics. Again, I think they're from NACE, which is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, but these are pretty good odds, right? 1 in 16, that's a lot stronger than just 1 in 152. I also know students who are like, well, why would they go off a personal recommendation? And it's kind of icky, right? But if you think about it, if you were to go get your bike fixed, for example, you might look at Yelp reviews first to get the overall objective data, but then you're going to go and ask your friends where they've been before, and probably they're going to hold a lot of weight. So what the point of making connections and building that relationship early and often, not just when you're job searching, is for exploration, is for mentorship and sponsorship eventually when they are hiring and they want to vouch for you. Okay. So just something to pay attention to. And again, a lot of jobs aren't posted are filled without a job ad. What? Like, that seems icky, but it's true. So that's why, again, those relationships really matter. Okay, so if you're like, yeah, but like, what could I do? I don't know, like, I don't have a network yet. Boo, you have so many people in your corner that you might not even realize, but you have friends, you have professors, you have staff members who have maybe served as mentors for you. Maybe both of you are involved on campus. There's so many different opportunities. And most importantly, we have 200,000 plus alumni around the world. And we're gonna go to the LinkedIn page in a moment, but you can see that there's 189,000 of them on LinkedIn that you are able to connect with directly. If you're feeling icky about that, if you're like, oh my gosh, a stranger on the internet, boo, like if someone came to you, like let's say a prospective student for CSU came to you and said, hey, I want to hear about your experience at CSU and if it would be my jam or not. Like, what made you successful? Why would you recommend it or not? You'd probably be pretty excited to tell them about your experience. Employers are also looking to make connections. That's why they have a LinkedIn profile. That's why you have a LinkedIn profile, or you will by the end of this webinar. So just know that you have a permission slip to reach out, and it's something called an informational interview, where you're asking someone about their story and their experience in their position. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like specifically, like some of the logistics, and where do I find those people. So two big places is professional associations. So both of you are still kind of new in your field, so you might not be going to conferences or presenting research, and that's okay. Later on in your career, you probably will find that. And then LinkedIn, right? What? One other thing that isn't on here, but I'll mention at the end, is the Virtual Career Conference. So at the end of April, in the last 2 weeks of April, the Career Center and the College of Business are hosting these awesome sessions about learning, about preparing, and then actually connecting with employers who are hiring right now. So that's a great place to get prepared with your LinkedIn and your pitch, so you know how to talk about yourself when you're in those virtual appointments with them. Okay, so with all that being said, I know a couple of you mentioned like, yeah, but I just want an appointment, or what are resources? So we're going to do a brief walkthrough of the things that are on this page. But the number one thing, because both of you mentioned your job searching, the number one thing I want you to start with is Handshake, because Handshake is where employers who are targeting CSU students for recruitment are posting jobs and internships. So when in doubt, start with Handshake. Handshake is a really great platform for interacting with employers as well. So as long as you make a profile and fill it out, you're going to stand out to employers. And because they're really recruiting CSU students, you have a higher rate of return on your investment when you apply through Handshake. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to walk through that platform, CSU alumni on LinkedIn, and I just put up here, I recommend using flexjobs.com for remote work. You do have to pay for a subscription, but there are other platforms as well similar to it. FlexJobs would be worth the investment of $15 a month. I'm not a spokesperson for them, but just as a note, if you're not in a place that you can afford that, I can send alternative resources. Okay, so let's pause on these slides. Okay, so we are now on the Career Center website. So again, Google CSU Career Center, and this is what pops up. So right over here, if you're like, LinkedIn, how do I do that? You can search LinkedIn in this search bar, or go down to topics and take a look at that. Building a great student profile. So if you go to this site, again, LinkedIn is a social media platform, right? So they want you to use it. They want you to get excited. And here's some top tips for that. Although that website is cool, I actually prefer to Google LinkedIn for students. And it actually takes you to this whole page. So again, if you're like, how do I do a profile? We literally have a profile checklist right here that walks you through what kind of photo do I put? What's in my headline? Summary, experience, how do I talk about myself? If you don't have any work experience, that's okay. We want to emphasize some projects or courses that you've been a part of down here. So when you mention what's the most important thing to put on a profile, it's filling it out, number one. So make sure that you have a good photo, like no bathroom shots or selfies, okay? Like no dirty mirrors, like, okay, so take a good photo. Doesn't have to be a professional Photoshop. It's just a good photo of you. But then, fill out your content. And the most important thing with your content is thinking about your future self. So for example, this person's headline is tell people what you're excited about now and cool things you want to do in the future. This says econ major and aspiring financial analyst. Now, because it's a social media platform, you all are probably familiar with tags, right? Like when you're on social media, you do an @ with somebody. Okay, so LinkedIn is a living, breathing, hire me sign. So every word that goes into your profile is a keyword. So when recruiters are like, I want to find some graduating students at CSU who are interested in financial analysis, or like Paulton, we were talking about maybe data analysis, right? That's why it's important to get clear on your story of what you're looking for, because then those keywords lead people to you over and over and over again. Okay. And then it also helps you clarify in your summary, like what you're looking for. And if you're exploring, that's okay. But maybe you can say, I'm exploring paths in data analysis, econometrics, and market research, right? There's, the pathways that you're exploring, but at least you're being clear about what you're looking for. Okay, and then again, fill out these experiences if you have them, but focus and get as many keywords in here as possible for the industries that you're applying for. So one of you mentioned that you're applying to Pixar, right? So they probably care a lot about Adobe, about your computer science skills, about drawing, like what are your platforms. You can put projects on here for that. I also recommend making a Behance.net. So Behance.net is a platform where you can put a ton of art portfolios for future reference. But make sure you fill out this skills section, your courses, and if you're like, I don't know what skills those are and what should go on there, boo, we're gonna talk, okay? All right, so this is how you fill out a profile and what that kind of looks like. Okay, so again, going back to the main page of the Career Center, all I did was search LinkedIn. All those great resources came up. Again, and this is also where you can do quick questions. So if you're like, I did a LinkedIn profile, I don't know if it's good. Great, go to a drop-in. We literally have them from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You just go to this chat box and say, I would like a drop-in for my LinkedIn, and type it there, and they immediately get back to you and set you up with a career education specialist. Okay, so, but if you're like, no, I want a long appointment with you, great, go to the virtual career advising, you click this and it takes you directly to Handshake. Okay. Awesome. So we're going to go just finish our conversation about LinkedIn and then we'll start talking about Handshake. Okay, so on LinkedIn, this is what shows up. So if you don't have a profile, this is the first page that shows up, but we're going to go to Colorado State University. Woohoo! And this is what shows up. On the left-hand side, we click alumni, and that's how we got to that page we were at before. 190,403 alumni. Oh my gosh, someone on there has got to be willing to help you, right? So if you get clear on maybe some of the locations you're excited about, the industries you want to go into, and again, or you're just exploring, this is a great way to do that. So I know, Paulden, you mentioned like, I'm going to narrow in on 3 specific fields. Beautiful. That's awesome. Maybe when you narrow in on those fields, like let's say, because you mentioned it before, I'll just say econometrics. And I put it in this search bar. Ooh, 554 alumni. Okay, so then I can click next, see what they do, because I know you said you were interested in the business or finance aspect of it, maybe the research, etc. What they studied. If you're like, I only want to talk to econ majors, great, click econ. That's fine. And then it'll show you all the folks that show up under there. So if you're like, oh my gosh, Kelly Lee looks so cool, I have to hang out with Kelly Lee, I want to know what Kelly Lee did, you can see their profile, scroll through, see how they described themselves so you can get ideas for your profile. And also you can see what led them to the path that they're in right now. This person was in the National Guard and then they went to Georgia College and now they're a teaching assistant. Okay, that path is just as valid as any other profile, right? So this can help you explore when you see the stories of other people. Okay, you can also see what courses they took, if they went to grad school, etc. But if you're like, oh my gosh, I want to learn all about Kelly's experience in this grad program, right? Or as a grad teaching assistant at CSU, I want to learn about the grad program. You can click connect. If this button doesn't show up, you click more and connect will show up in there. Okay, but you click connect and you say add a note, because you're a random stranger. Do not just hit up Kelly in her DMs. Like, you need to explain who you are and why you're there. So in this message, you would think about, who is this person? How did I find out about them? And what am I hoping for, right? So we might say, hello, Kelly. I found your profile through the CSU alumni page. As I was exploring, I am currently exploring opportunities in, I'm currently exploring career paths in market research or business economics, and I wanted to learn more about your experience. Could we please have a short phone call or Zoom? Thank you. And then you send the invitation, right? It is that simple. That simple. Okay. Okay, so there were some good questions brought up about, but what about anxiety? Like, I'm talking to strangers on the internet. Just so you know, you can actually go to your profile and change your privacy settings. So let's see, Kelly is a third connection. That means that Kelly knows someone that knows someone that knows me. So the more connections I build, the closer I get to those Bill Gates, right? Or those folks that can really make a difference in my career. Now, Bill Gates cannot make a difference in my career. That's just being pithy. But again, Kelly might be that much closer to other contacts in the field that I want to learn more about. Or, because I know one of you mentioned Pixar explicitly, if you find Pixar and you're like, oh my gosh, I want to talk to someone there before I apply, you're far more likely to get a position or at least a conversation or an interview, right? So I'm going to just search Pixar and see if there's any alumni from there. 16. They're not showing up. Oh, yes, they are. Look at that, senior recruiter at Pixar. Boo, you could totally talk to Peggy, and Peggy may never respond to you. That's okay, ghosting sucks. But that's why we have to be resilient and keep trying to connect with those folks, and it's okay. Awesome. Okay, so the reason why I'm bringing all of this up is because this stuff is hard. Like, getting to your next career step isn't just pulling yourself up by the bootstraps and working really hard. That's part of it. It's also building those relationships with folks so that you feel less alone. And right now, more than ever, during an uncertain economy, we have to lean on each other. And that's why I'm hoping this makes it a little bit less scary to make a profile and send a message. What's the worst that could happen? Right? And if you're feeling any kind of anxiety about it, you can always come to a drop-in or an appointment and craft a couple messages so that you feel confident sending it off. Like, we've got your back. Okay? But we're going to cruise over to a different session now, but that's a good overview of LinkedIn. Okay, so now that we're on this page, I'm going to go to Handshake. Now, before I go there, if you're like, I want to find jobs, like, how do I do that? You go to the CSU Career Center page and click jobs, and it takes you directly to Handshake. Okay, so again, this is a platform where employers are posting for CSU students and alumni. So you're like, I want jobs. Great, go to jobs. Awesome. And then you can use key terms to filter things out. This is also a great way to explore. Okay. I'm not going to go over this because it is in the job searching webinar, but I just wanted you to get familiar with maybe reading position descriptions is a great way to explore those careers and be like, ooh, or get ideas for skill sets that keep propping up in these positions you're excited about so that you can make sure to mention them on your LinkedIn. Okay. But most importantly is this My Profile piece. So on your profile, it looks very similar to LinkedIn, right? Yeah, so it's annoying that you have to fill it in a million times, but you're going to do it one more time, okay? So fill in work and volunteer, organizations and extracurriculars, courses, projects, all that good stuff. And fill it out because we can know more about you. One great thing about Handshake that LinkedIn doesn't have is you can upload a document, like a resume. And when you upload that resume, it can sync all the content over into your Handshake profile. Now, it's not perfect. It kind of messes up and goes into different sections, but it's a great tool and it takes a lot less time than making a LinkedIn profile. Okay? Awesome. So, do you feel a little bit more confident with how to build a Handshake profile? Yeah? Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah, exactly. So when in doubt, I would say, oh my gosh, stop. So one question that was brought up is, what do we put on a general quote unquote profile versus a resume? Ideally, you have an idea of some of the things that you're trying to apply for, right? Because then your content is going to stand out so much more than anytime you just try to be a general jack of all trades. One thing you can do on Handshake is you can add multiple documents. So you can have multiple resumes, like an art resume versus a creative writing resume versus my data analysis resume. That's totally okay. You don't need to make a bajillion, but that's why it's helpful to get an idea of the industries you're excited about. If you're excited about 3 that are pretty closely related, the skill sets are probably going to be the same. But if not, again, a LinkedIn profile or Handshake, the best part about them is it isn't a resume, right? Like, it's a living, breathing, this is everything I've done. This is all the cool stuff I want you to see. So you don't have to hold back as much as when you make a resume and you're trying to tailor it really specifically to an industry. Okay, awesome. So back on the slides. Great. So we went over Handshake, we went over CSU alumni on LinkedIn. Please come to the virtual career conference at the end of the month. I'm a big part of organizing it, and I can tell you that the sessions are tailored for students like you. They're really going to be awesome. There's also a lot of online employer events. So again, getting clear on what do I want people to know about me, right? Like, what are things that I want to be known for? And that can evolve over your lifetime. But what are 3 things you want to be known for, and what's your next step? So for example, if you're introducing yourself and you say, hi, my name's Kelsey. I'm a graduating senior from Colorado State University with a major in economics, and I'm seeking full-time work in X location. I am really excited to use skills with data analysis or storytelling, or, again, summarizing those skills, because I think blank, like because why, and I'm really excited about your company because blank. Okay, so if you want to practice more of your elevator pitch, if you were talking to employers, which I know can be super scary, again, we're going to have lots of sessions during the storytelling webinar next week, but also lots of sessions during that career conference so that you can learn more and practice. Okay, so lastly, if some of you are like, I already have a network, good for you, boo. Just make sure that you keep maintaining your LinkedIn and reach out to your contacts now. Folks are in flux, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's okay to reach out and say, hey, I wanted to just see how you're doing, and if there's anything I can do to help, or what are some trends that you're seeing at your company, and what are you thinking about for the future? They might not have an answer, but it's okay to build those relationships, and our employer advisory board explicitly said it's okay to reach out. So again, leaving permission slips to build those relationships. Okay, again, when in doubt, if you're like, how do I do this? We talked about it earlier. The easiest way to do this is just going to the CSU Career Center website and just clicking on things. But you can also email me directly if you're like, I want to meet with you. Again, I'm on Handshake, but if you're like, no, I want you, great, email me. But these are all the topics that we can cover, and there will be more to come. Again, this is not an updated list, but next week we're going to be storytelling your skills. So again, resumes, cover letters, and just talking about myself in general. And then for the 22nd, this isn't updated yet, but we're going to do a grad school decisions. So to grad school or not to grad school. And on the 29th, we're going to do an international job search webinar. So very exciting content. We'll have career education abroad, hopefully, and there will be more information, so stay tuned. But this is how you access it because y'all are here, so you know it. Okay, I also just wanted to mention these things. These are some great resources at CSU and not CSU. So if you're really excited about a company, so someone mentioned Pixar, please double check this listserv, candor.co/hiring freezes. It's a self-reported list of companies and their status for hiring. So it's just a really important thing to check if you're like, I'm really excited, but are they even still, do they have opportunities? And it's updated really well. This was a highly recommended resource. And then again, check out our weekly newsletters. They come straight to your inbox with content from me specifically. We have an online resource center that we looked at for those LinkedIn pieces, but there's so much more in there. And then this is a list of all these other things that might be relevant for you during this time period. So just know that these resources are still available. And okay, so there's a couple ways. A good question that was brought up is, how do we check on employers' reputations or how they treat employees? There's two paths that I highly recommend. First is actually going on Handshake. So students can report if they've been in an opportunity at that organization and what they thought about it. And they're very transparent because the employers don't have control over that content. So start with Handshake when you see those employers. And then I also recommend Glassdoor.com. So Glassdoor.com actually has students share like sample interview questions that they heard, what the salaries were, and some of the insights on like, oh, they were really cool, or oop, they were a little shady. So that's a really good resource to check out. Good question. Okay, so my last slide, we've made it to the finish line. I want to know what you all are going to do for your career development, or what you're going to do to build your career community by next Friday. Okay, so these are just some ideas, but I want you to write down what's one thing that you'll do for your career development or building your career community by next Friday. Awesome. So a couple of things that were brought up were that they're going to work on their portfolio so that they can make sure it's up to snuff. I also think, again, don't be shy. Like, we have appointment slots and drop-ins, and based on these great questions you're asking, I think it would be relevant for you. We are still doing mock interviews. That was another great question. But if you also want to practice mock interviews, we have something called Big Interview. That's on the Career Center website, and it's pre-recorded questions that you can select, and it will you can record yourself answering them, and play it back and practice, which is awesome. But you can also definitely come in for a drop-in or an appointment, or virtual drop-in or appointment, and we can totally coach you through that. Okay, so if you have any questions or feedback, please let me know. I hope that this was relevant for you. I think y'all are doing a great job just searching in the void, but you're not alone. If you want to catch me on Monday, I am actually doing an Instagram takeover for the College of Liberal Arts page. I did it last Monday, and I'll have an Ask Me Anything box. So if anything comes up in the meantime, feel free to email me. This is my email right here, or come to Instagram Mondays, and I will be there for the Q&A. Awesome. But thanks for coming. Change the world, and just keep me posted if there's anything we can do to support you. Awesome.